When the creators of the United States Constitution had finished their work, they presented a relatively brief document to the nation that outlined a framework and procedures of the proposed new government and set limits on how much power that government would have. As the framers developed the Constitution, they based much of its direction on several basic foundational principles that have kept the Constitution relevant even as the nation evolved. One of these principles is popular sovereignty, which ensures that all power ultimately rests in the hands of the people. Because people give the government its power, it can only function with the consent of the people. Along the same lines, the principle of limited government states that government can only do things that the people give it the authority to do. Government cannot invade all areas of its citizens' lives. The concept of separation of powers is another very important foundational principle for our government. Based on this principle, the Constitution divided the power of the national government between the legislative branch, made up of the Congress, the executive branch, which is the President, and the judicial branch, which consists of the Supreme and federal courts.
The accumulation of all powers, legislative, executive, and judiciary, in the same hands, whether of one, a few, or many, may be justly pronounced the very definition of tyranny. James Madison, Federalist No. 47, 1788.
With the power of the government separated, the Constitution's principle of checks and balances gives the three governmental branches the power to restrain the other, preventing any one entity from gaining absolute power over the country. An example of the checks and balance system in action is the President's power to veto any law the Congress passes. The Congress can also override the veto if 2/3 of the House and Senate vote to do so. The principle of judicial review is also part of the checks and balance system. With this principle, the Supreme Court, federal courts, and some state courts have the power to declare an action unconstitutional, making it illegal. The Constitution does not specifically outline judicial review, but the Supreme Court established the power in the case of Marbury v. Madison in 1803. Another basic principle that the Constitution was designed around is the system of federalism, a system that divides power between the national government and state or regional governments. For the constitutional framers, the goal of this principle was to develop a national government that deals with issues that affect the nation as a whole, and leave state and local governments the power to deal with matters of local concern. They also wanted to prevent the national government from being able to get absolute tyrannical control, while preventing problems arising from a weak confederation of independent states.
Federalism furnishes the means of uniting commonwealths into one nation under one national government without extinguishing their separate administrations, legislatures, and local patriotisms. James Bryce, 1888.